What's going on, everyone? Soft Trades here, and I thought I'd spend some time this weekend going over some of the A+ setups I've been trading through the end of January into the start of February, kind of give you guys a little taste of my own personal trading journal, and walk you through some of the setups that I consider to be A+. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. So right over here, you guys can see we have our first example, APRN, which is a 5-minute flag on February 3rd, 2023. And you can see right here, I kind of have everything, already done for you. So I'm just kind of going to walk you guys through, what each one of these boxes mean, so you guys can get a little insight of what I'm thinking inside of my mind. So right over here, really simple. We have a high volume push. You guys can see volume slowly stair stepping up. We have a bullish heartbeat, green, bullishness. All right. We break through our 120 area resistance. This was from the previous day. You guys can see high volume push over 120 previous day resistance. The stock then pulls back into $1.20 on descending volume while forming this beautiful 5-minute flag. What do? I see this flag. I get long on this dip over here at $1.19 with risk off of this low, which is $1.17. Now notice the VPA on the flag, guys, because this is a big part. We have a high volume push to create our flag pull. Notice how we have the descending volume on the pullback into the pivot. Now, the reason we look for the descending volume is because this is kind of going to give us a signal that there's a higher probability of buyers being ready at this pivot because it is a low volume pullback. Of course, we want to incorporate other things like level 2 and the bidders and get some more reads on it. But for a basic flag, you want to see a high volume push and you want to see a low volume pullback. So we get our low volume pullback. I get long 119 with risk off 117. Then we could see bidders step in, they give us a push through the highs, and I take a piece of profit immediately through the highs. Now, why do I take a piece of profit immediately through the highs? In case we get rejected. Now, I sell full up here. You guys could see I sell full because there was a huge order on the ask at $1.26, and I thought to myself, wow, we're most likely going to reject here. This is a huge wall. Keep in mind, APRN had a bigger size flow, I think somewhere in the 40 millions if I'm not mistaken. But notice the VPA. Low volume pullback. Then notice the stair step up into new highs. Boom. Look at the stair step up effect. 1 step, 2 step, 3 step. Then when I sell full, we start coming into our 120 area pivot. You guys could see. And we end up forming another 5-minute flag on low volume pullback. So we get the high volume push, then we get the low volume pullback into our pivot while forming this picture perfect 5-minute flag. So you guys could see stock pulls into previous high area. You see these were just wicks. The bodies closed over our 123 area pivot. And we confirmed this area as support while forming another 5-minute flag. I add more to my position on the drop into 123. I believe my average is now 121, 122, not 100% sure. This was, maybe 10 days ago. Don't remember off the top of my head. I'll have to check the files. But we get this beautiful 5-minute flag look over our pivot. Low volume pullback, exactly what we want to see, A+. Then we get a high volume push into new highs. And you could see bidders step in on this flag. We push right into the previous day resistance at $1.29. You guys can see I kind of had this zone drawn. And level 2 is weak. There wasn't any. Now I'm starting to, paint the picture in my head. There was big walls over here, okay? There was no bidding stepping up, meaning there was no buyer stepping in to start chipping this big order on the ask. It was very heavy. So what do I decide to do? I decide to sell my remaining shares here at new high a day. You could see it was trading very heavy. I get out of my position up here at 129. Right in that area. Maybe I got filled 127, 129, 128. Don't remember off the top of my head. But you can see we start pulling back after. So this is how you can kind of, use level 2 in conjunction with these flags to figure out if you're going to find some continuation or if you're going to start finding some rejection. In this case, bidders weren't stepping up. I noticed that and I prevented myself from taking that break-even trade or even holding it and hoping and, going red on the trade. So good trade here, A+ setup, 5-minute flags into new highs. Moving on to our next example here, we have phase, which is also on February 3rd, 2023. And you could see we have a 3-minute flag, but this one formed over a daily pivot, okay? So you could see right here we have a previous level of resistance. The stock breaks through the 115 daily resistance. Now what am I going to do? I'm not going to add. There's no reason for me to add just yet. I'm going to stay patient, and I'm going to wait and see if a setup presents itself. If phase broke 115, which is our daily level, and continued to rally 125, 135, 140, I'm not chasing it. Why am I not chasing it? Because there is no setup for me. So what do I do now? I want to wait for that setup. I have to be disciplined. I have to wait. That's the biggest part of trading that a lot of people don't do. They don't wait. So I'm waiting for the setup. Stock pushes into highs, gets rejected, and comes into the 115 daily pivot to confirm this area as support while forming a 3-minute flag on descending volume. I notice this and I take an entry at 114 with risk off of the 110 area, which is our last known support. So I risked about 5 cents. What was my average here? 115. Risked about 5 cents. 114. So I risked 4 cents. And we got to push all the way into 130, I believe, 129 area. But to go on the flag real quick, you guys could see. Nice stair step up. Right? Stair step down. High volume push. Low volume pullback. High volume push. Low volume pullback. That's exactly what you want to see. So we get long here with our risk off of 110. You see I took some ads off 115, bought the dip in a 114, micro dip, whatever you want to call it. Buyers step in off 115 area, give us the push into highs. I take a piece of profit right over here into highs. Why? Because we're coming up to high a day. And if you guys have been watching my videos, you guys know that I preach this. Take profit into high of day. Why do we do this? In case we get rejected at high a day. Look at this. Let's say this was, another candle over here at high day. And look, you hit high day, get rejected. Hit high day, get rejected. So by taking profit here, we can either get out of the trade with a small green or a break even, or we can even be a little more flexible on it because we've already locked some in. So I always take profit in case we get rejected. I can't emphasize on that enough. More bidders step in, stock pushes through highs into 128, and I begin to peel off more profit. Why? Simply because the level 2 is beginning to flip and bidders are losing the upper hand. So what do I mean by that? As we're getting this high volume push in a 128s here, through 125s I should say, bidding is strong. Bidders are chipping down the 124 wall, bidders are chipping down the 125 wall, momentum is starting to kick in, emotions are starting to rise, we're getting happy, we're getting ready to start peeling. And as soon as we break through this area, I notice these bidders are nowhere to be found now. I notice the sellers are starting to step in, which gives me an indication that the tape is beginning to flip. There's bigger walls on the sell side than there are walls on the bid side. So I know, okay, hey, I should start peeling. Why? Because the bidders are losing strength. They're losing the upper hand. The sellers are starting to come in, and the sellers are starting to gain the advantage and gain the upper hand. So I take some more profit into 128. Then we have this low volume pullback. So I leave some on. Okay, we have this big bearish engulfing on pretty low volume considering our big buying, candles. So we have some low volume. I decide to keep some on, see if the bidders end up slurping it off 120, maybe 118. And when they do not slurp it and when we actually flush below our EMA 9, you can see we close below it. And as soon as the next candle opened to confirm our EMA 9 as resistance, EMA 13, as soon as I see them confirm our EMA 13 on this candle, what do? You guys see the red candle. I sell out of my remaining position. Why? Bidders are not stepping up. The game plan that I thought was going to happen is not happening. So I sell out of my position and I move on to the next. Overall green trade. I'm happy. Always good to be a little flexible on your runners. I've seen names, come all the way back into the pivot, get slurped up, and then create new highs. We had an example of this yesterday on HILS. It flushed into the 216 low a day pivot. I bought the dip 225. We ended up trapping the shorts and ripping right up to $2.54 where I took my final piece of profit. So you could see, it did try to happen on this next candle, but overall bidders were weak. I did exit over here. Overall green trade. I'm happy. On to the next. Come over to our next example, ELIS. Didn't jot the date down on this one. Probably within the same time frame though. But let's walk into this one. So we have our pre-market resistance right here at $1.25. You guys could see that very clearly. $1.25 resistance. You can see we got rejected right over here. Also our downtrend line got rejected off of it. So we get a high volume push over downtrend line plus 125 area pre-market resistance. Stock pushes into our 139 pre-market high. You guys could see that right over here. 139 pre-market high. Go to make it a little bigger for you guys. So you guys see that we get rejected there. Also get rejected here. And now we're pulling into 125 to confirm it as support while forming a 1 minute flag. So sort of into the open. I like to play 1 or 3 minute flags. Kind of moving after 10 a.m. I like to switch over to the 5 minute and focus mainly on 5 minute flags. That's just what I like to do. You can always do what you like to do, but that's what I do. So we get this high volume push, right? Then we get this low volume pullback into our 125 area support, where we confirm our resistance as support while forming a flag on low volume or low descending volume. So we reject there, we push in, blah, blah, blah. After noticing this flag, I get long at 128 with risk off of 125. So I'm basically risking 3 to 4 cents on this position. And we get a push all the way into $1.40 area. Risk lines up, amazing risk. So after noticing the flag, I get long. Then let's move on to the next one. So buyers step in, giving us the push into the 135 area resistance, where I take a piece of profit here in case we get rejected. So you guys see, bounce off 125, push right through our 135 area pre-market resistance, right? This is a pre-market pivot. I take profit. You guys can see my red candle. I take profit. Why do I take profit? Simple. In case we get rejected. Okay, moving on. So we break through the 135 area, pushing a 140 area to res. I begin to take majority of my position off because level 2 was becoming heavy and bidders were not stepping up. So what does this mean? Same thing as the example over here. After breaking through the 139 area, I know my target's going to be around 153. Why? Because that is pre-market high, and usually when you're playing these flags, that's always going to be your first target. If you're below it, if you're over it, then you go to your daily. But anyways, that's a video for another time. But over here, I notice, okay, hey, bidders are slowing down, sellers are starting to walk in, and now the tape is starting to shift again. There's more sellers than buyers on the tape. They're setting up walls. Bidders are not chopping through these walls. So I know momentum is starting to exhaust. So I begin to take majority of my position off simply because of that reason. So I always like to leave runners, okay? That's a big thing with me. I like to leave runners because sometimes, like I said, you get the little dump, you slurp up, you create new highs. But in this case, the reads were right. I did not end up selling the rest of my position. We do halt down, and I was able to get out on this candle at break even. So the reads were proper. So one thing that, I obviously can see I need to work on is that I need to trust my reads, okay? I shouldn't leave runners if I think it's going to be pulling back, but no one can anticipate a halt down. No one can anticipate a halt up. It can only happen in the moment, and you can only react to it in the moment. In this case, I will admit I did get lucky. I was able to exit the rest of my position, break even. Runners are always a smaller position. So, we take the meat of the move. You get most of your position off. Then you do keep the runners, something I like to do. We do halt down. I wasn't quick enough to exit before the halt. And then I exit, break even. So the reads were right. Picture perfect flag here for the 1 minute. You guys could see high volume push, low volume pullback, high volume push, low volume pullback. We end up selling off completely. So I was lucky, to exit where I did. But yeah, that's this flag over here on the 1 minute. Moving on to our next example. This is going to be January 31st, 2022. I'm sorry. I just had a brain fart. January 31st, 2023. We have a soon 5-day, 5-minute flag. So you guys can see we have our pre-market resistance right here at $2.15, $2.16. So we get the high volume push through pre-market highs at $2.16. Stock pulls back to retest this level while forming a 5-minute flag. I get long at $2.18 with risk off at $2.15 area. So you guys can see high volume push through our area, through our $2.16 area. Low volume pullback. Low volume pullback. Can't emphasize that enough. Low volume pullback. Buyers end up stepping in off of the 216 area pivot after confirming it as resistance. You could see the stair step up effect. 1 step, 2 step, then bam, buyers really step in. We get our breakthrough 225, breakthrough 228. You guys see my red candle here. You guys can probably guess. Buyers stepping off the pre-market high pivot. We get the retest. They push us into higher day. I scale a piece of profit at 125. Why? You guessed it. In case we get rejected at this level. But one thing I do want to note, okay, and I wrote it over here as well. Notice the stair step down and the stair step up. This is a plus. This is crucial for a 5-minute flag setup, a 1-minute flag setup, or a 3-minute flag setup, even a 10-minute flag setup. Low VPA is crucial. I'm not going to emphasize that enough. I want to drill it in your guys' head. So next up here, we push into 239, which was yesterday's high on this name. I figured we were going to get rejected. This was my take profit level. This is actually where I sold out, and this was my, this was my plan coming into it. There's going to be those people that say, oh, we're going through 240, we're going through 250, we're going to $5. I don't care what you think. I'm going to go with what I think. So what do? We take our final piece of profit at 239, but why? Why do we do that? Why don't we hold the runners for the break? Because we had multiple tests the previous day, and every time we came up to this level, we got rejected. So I decided to sell full at $2.40 on a limit, take the win in the morning, and move on to the next trade. You can see we kind of had not the cleanest looking 5-minute flag. We did have the stair step down with the higher volume push here. Excuse me. But that wick kind of throws me off. Obviously, bidders were there off the previous high pivot. Got him a nice push into like 250. Cool. If this thing started ramping through 250s, because this was obviously a level from yesterday, I could see, how do I know that? Because my line extends across the screen. It's not just a line like this. This is usually today's pivot. This is usually either yesterday's or a daily. That's how I organize my pivots. But I see 250 was a level. So if we did get through 250, would have done some further analysis and maybe played a flag into 250. But that's the 5-minute flag I played here. Once again, low volume pullback, high volume push. Moving on to our next example, this is SABR, SOBR. This is a 5-day, 10-minute flag, okay? So I do play 10-minute flags. So what do we see here? We have our 145, 150 area resistance. You guys can see it clearly. We came up to this level twice, got rejected. And then we finally get our high volume push through our 148. Okay, it was 148. We get our high volume push through 148 resistance. Stock creates new highs. Then we pull into our 148 resistance, which we're now expecting to be support. And it gives us a 10-minute bull flag while pulling into this pivot. I also remember SABR, I was watching on the 1 minute, and the way I nailed this reversal was also by noticing simply the 1 minute higher low. Don't know if I have a screenshot of it. Maybe I'll talk about it in the next video. Remember, I was on live with some buddies. There was SABR, 1 minute higher low. We added that higher low, and we also noticed the 10-minute flag setup. So kind of touch base on the VPA. High volume push, low volume pullback into our pivot. Bidders step in. Bidders give us the stair step up into higher day area. I begin to take some off into 160 in case we get rejected. We get our push through higher day, and that's where I take another piece off. And looking left, I notice that every time we have a decent pop on this name, we get smacked right back down. So I'm going to be quick with taking my profits. Looking left is key. If I'm playing a stock and I notice, okay, hey, yesterday gave us a similar setup, popped 20 cents, fell 30 cents. What am I going to do when that stock pops 15 or 10 cents? I'm going to start taking profits. Why? Because this stock clearly has a history of giving back its moves. So as soon as we break over our 168 daily pivot and push into 170s, I decide to sell full, anticipating a rejection. Level 2 is also heavy with lots of sell orders stacking and not enough bidders stepping through. You could see we end up, coming back down. We end up holding this area, try to get another push, and we kind of had this 10-minute flag look over here, but my main trade was over here. So 4, which is, low volume pullback into 160s right here. You guys could see. So we get our low volume pullback into 160s. I decide to get long again with smaller size to see if we trap shorts and move higher. We end up bouncing off of 160. This is now our new support level that I'm focused on. We create new highs through 178, and I had a limit at $1.80. Now you guys might say, this came down, it broke 160. How come you didn't get out? And be honest with you guys, I was on the road. I had a limit set at 180. I opened, my app 30 minutes into my drive or whatever it was, maybe an hour into my drive, and I seen that I got filled. So sure, this could have dumped with me, but I did have alerts set on my phone, so I would have known if it started dumping below 155s. Well, we do bounce off of this 161 area pivot. We get a new high tap into 180, and I sell full. Why? Because looking left, 178 was a very heavy area on the tape, and I didn't think we would continue much higher after getting through this level. Once again, the reads were right. Moving on to our next example here. Okay, so I had two screenshots there. We'll get rid of one. Moving on to our next example, EBET, 5-day, 3-minute flag. You guys could see right here we have our pre-market resistance, 178. So we get a high volume push through our 160 area pivot. You guys could see it over here, 160 area pivot. We get a high volume push through our 160 area pivot. Also a break through VWAP. You guys could see we broke through VWAP, which is this purple line over here. And we pull back and confirm VWAP and our pivot as support while forming a 3-minute flag. You guys can see high volume push, flag formation over our pivot, over VWAP, over our EMA 13. A plus, I'm interested. So what do? I get long on the hold of VWAP at 171 with risk off of the 163 area pivot, which is also lining up with the EMA 9. Risking about, 7-8 cents on this. We end up getting a push into high day right over here. Buyer step in off of the pivot and VWAP retest. Give us a push into our 180 pre-market area resistance. You guys can see right over here. You guys see my purple line across my screen. Pre-market resistance. And I scale a piece of profit here. Why? You guessed it once again. In case we get rejected in this area. Can't emphasize it enough, guys. Normally trades right out the gate. I just wanted to write this note down. Normally trades right out the gate are higher risk, because volatility is higher. And if you ever do trade with me on live, you'll notice when I'm trading something off of the gates, I am quick to take my profits for that specific reason. I've seen stocks put in a candle like this off the open, form a nice flag, then bam, give it all the way back. Hills was actually a great example of this yesterday. Hills actually put in a nice flag on the 5-minute, and then ended up flushing and creating new lows. So volatility is way higher off the open. If I ever play anything off the open, I will be quick to take my profits and move on to the next setup. So moving on, buyers step in heavily and give us the 180 break followed by a parabolic move into $2, which is also another pre-market resistance. I sell the remainder of my position in front of $2. Normally I will leave runners, but I am being cautious in case we decide to flush. Clearly we did not. But that's okay because I caught a nice piece of the pie. So we made almost triple our risk. We got a nice move into 2, one of our pre-market levels. Should have kept the runners for the push into 220s, but it is what it is. I caught a nice piece of the move all the way from 171 to $2. So great trade here. VPA, it wasn't the biggest stair step down, but going off the level 2, there were a lot of bidders here. We also have our EMA 13 here. We also have our VWAP. We also have our pivot. So 3 things lining up telling me, hey, you got a level of support here. Also, the level 2 was telling me that bidders were stepping in, so I thought it was worth the risk. We ended up getting a nice high volume push into $2. You could see, we end up pushing into here. I believe this name did halt up through 220s, opened up 260s, ended up giving the whole move back, but that's all right. I don't want to be in for this nasty move. I want to be in for the clean move. I want to make my money. Then I want to move on to the next play. So moving on to the next example here. Wow, this is, let me zoom in on this, guys. Oh, this is blurry. That's the difference between doing them on the Mac and the Windows. Understood. So this is AEMD January 30, 2023, 5-minute flag over VWAP. I know it's a little blurry, guys. It's probably blurry on your screens as well. I'm going to do my best to explain this one, though. You see we get a high volume break above VWAP. Where is it? High volume break above VWAP. Now I must wait for the retest. So we get a high volume break over VWAP. We get our, I believe I meant to write EMA because VWAP's up here. We clearly broke over it, but we got rejected on it. So circling this, I believe I meant to say our EMA. So we get our high volume break over our EMA. Pull back into our EMA to form this beautiful flag. I start adding down here 68 cents. You guys can see my green arrow over here. Wait, which setup is this? Okay, no, never mind. I'm sorry, guys. There was 2 setups here that I traded. I'm referring to this one at the moment. So we get a high volume break above VWAP. You guys can see this big green candle through VWAP. We get a push all the way up into highs, which is 85 cents. Low volume pullback into VWAP to confirm VWAP as support, also our EMA 13 as support. And we form a beautiful 5-minute flag. You guys could see high volume push, low volume pullback, high volume push, low volume pullback into VWAP. So I see this and I enter the flag as close as I can to VWAP, and now my risk is off VWAP. I don't remember exactly what average I had, maybe 72s, maybe 73s, maybe even 71s. Buyers step in on the retest of VWAP and give us a bounce into our 78-cent pre-market resistance. And this is where I take my first piece of profit. Why? In case we get rejected. So you guys can see our 78-cent pre-market resistance here. We get a nice pop here into 78 cents. I take a piece of profit off. And then once we get over our 78-cent resistance, I notice we have 3 highs. I connect my trend line. And I notice that this is an area where we may find resistance. So once we pull into this trend line, we begin to find resistance. And I sell out anticipating a pullback. Now, why do I anticipate the pullback, guys? Give you a second to take a guess. Why do I anticipate the pullback? I anticipate the pullback because by textbook, if you have 3 highs touching a trend line, it is considered a textbook verified downtrend. So that is what AEMD did here. We have 1 tap on our trend line. We have 2 tap on our trend line. We have 3 tap on our trend line. So technically, by textbook, this stock is now creating a downtrend. I notice this, and I sell out of the remaining piece of my position. You guys can see these red arrows because I notice we have 3 highs connecting to this trend line. So we are now forming a downtrend. You guys could see, once I sell out, we get a flush, and stock ends up giving a round trip all the way back to pre-market and low of day. Simple reads like that, guys, are very, 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 very effective. I noticed 3 highs, put my trend line, noticed the 3 taps, remembered what I read in the books multiple times. 3 taps is now a downtrend. Bam, saved myself from the flush. Moving on to the next example. Oh, okay, so this was backwards. So this is the second flag on AMD, and then this is the first flag on AEMD. So AMD, high volume break through 65 pre-market resistance. Now I'm waiting for the setup. Right over here, 65 pre-market resistance. Right over here, you see we get the break through our pre-market resistance. Now I'm waiting for the setup. Stock pushes into 78. Stock then pulls back into 65 on descending volume. High volume push, descending volume on the pullback. Now I enter as close as I can to 65 and risk off of this level. You guys could see high volume push, low volume pullback into our 65 area pivot. I get long at 65 area with risk off of 65. Next, buyers step in off of the 65 pivot, give us a push into VWAP right over here, and I take my first piece of profit. Why? Looking left, we've rejected VWAP once, so now I know there is a higher probability we may reject it again. Looking left, we rejected VWAP here, rejected VWAP here. So now I know we also, rejected VWAP multiple times over here. But now I know if we push into VWAP, I should take a piece of profit just in case we reject. So we reject it again. More buyers step in on the flush into 65. And then we get the breakthrough VWAP and push into our next area of resistance, which is going to be our 78 area pre-market resistance. And this is where I take another piece of profit. Why? Because we got rejected in pre-market. We have a resistance level in pre-market. We're coming back into that level. We also got rejected here. We're coming back into that level to test it. Why wouldn't I take a piece of profit? What if we got rejected? Then, I didn't take profit here. Then I have to stop out of the trade or stop out of the trade for break even. How, trying to find the right word, but how bothered would you be? Man, I was in this trade. We pushed up. I was so green in it. And then now I'm break even or red in it. You would feel almost crappy, You would be like, man, that sucks. I should have taken my profit. So instead of, having those thoughts, just take the damn profit when it's available, just like we did here. So we end up getting a breakthrough 78. I take another piece of profit off. Why? Because we got rejected here. So next we get our extension through 78. into our pre-market high of 85 cent area. And this is where I take my third and final piece of profit. Why? Look left. Pre-market resistance, we got rejected, really hard over here. You guys could see we hit 85, rejected hard, and we formed this huge downtrend. So when we come back to 85, what am I going to do? I'm going to expect the same thing or something very similar to happen. In our case, it happens almost picture perfect. We hit like 86, maybe 85.5. We get rejected, we come down, and then that's when we played, the second flag over here. But this was the first flag. And then, obviously we have our downtrend that formed and we sell off. But that's why I took my final piece off here, simply because looking left, it was a level of resistance that we rejected earlier. Gonna have to zoom out now. Oops, I clicked zoom. Okay, so QNCX, January 27, 2023, 3 to 5 minute flag. We're on the 3 minute at the time. Pre-market scalp. I misspelled scalp. It's all right. So you could see here clearly we get a stair step push through our 125 area resistance. You guys see 125 is resistance here. We get a stair step up, push through 125 into our 137 area, 140 area daily levels. Then we start pulling back in to form this 5 minute flag while holding our EMA and also holding over our VWAP and also our 125 area pivot. 3 different things confirming this area as support. Well, 4. I'm sure there were bidders on the tape as well. So you got bidders on the tape, you got your EMA holding, you got your VWAP holding, and then you have your 125 pivot holding. So 4 different things right there telling you, hey, expect this area to hold as support. So what do? We get long near 125, add as close as I can to 125 area with stop loss below 125. Also notice the low volume pullback confirming the 125 area's new support. So look, high volume push, descending or low volume pullback into the pivot. You guys see high volume push, descending low volume into the pivot. Then what happens? High volume push through 140s right over here and push into the 150 psych level. And this is where I exit full. Why did I exit full? Because it wasn't the cleanest setup in my opinion. Look at all this kind of indecision in this area. But at the time it was a low risk opportunity and that's why I took it. But once we got the parabolic pop in pre-market, I knew to myself, okay, hey, parabolic pop into 150 psych level. What are the chances this thing really continues higher, I take the win before the market even opens and I move on with my day. So you guys could see, we end up hitting 170, which was a daily level. I found that out later on. And then we end up selling off completely. But, kind of, I would say a B plus flag here, maybe C plus flag here. And it worked out. We got a push in a 150 psych level. I decided to get out. Good trade here nonetheless. Good reads on the VPA, good reads on the pivot, good reads on the indicators, good reads on the level 2. It worked out in our favor. Let's say this broke 125. All right, cool. You would have taken the L, It is what it is. Moving on to our next example. This is GNS on January 27, 2023, and we have a 5 minute flag. So previous resistance level turned into support. You guys can see previous resistance. We get a high volume push. Look at this stair step up. Get a high volume push through this area. Now I'm waiting for the retest. I'm waiting for the setup. Sometimes some people like to buy the first pullback into the pivot. You can do that if that's your strategy. Nothing against it. I personally like to give it a little bit of time and try and see if it's going to give me a setup that I personally like to trade. And for me, that's going to be flags. So we get a break. I'm now looking for the reclaim of this level and a confirmation of support. So stock reclaims over 390, confirms it as support with a low volume pullback right over here, high volume push, low volume pullback confirming 389, 390 as support, and we also create a 5 minute flag. So this trade I took a little different. I didn't buy off of the pivot. I waited for the first 5 to make a new high. And why did I do that? Because at the time there was a lot of indecision here, okay? Bulls and bears were kind of like at a battle and no one really had the upper hand yet. And I know that if the first 5 makes a new high, then it is considered to be a confirmation of a breakout of a flag pattern. So I waited for that first 5 to make a new high. So right over here, we get that first 5 to make a new high. I end up adding right over here. And we get a push. Oh, right over here. Sorry, I was looking for number 4. Like, wait, where is it? So I add right over here on the first 5 to make a high. risk off 390 pivot since we've confirmed that as support multiple times. Then I scaled my first piece of profit through the psych $4 level right over here. Also previous resistance right over here. You guys could see $4 previous resistance. We get our breakthrough $4. I decided to take my first piece of profit in case we get rejected. Next, we get our push into the high day area with a little bit of an extension. I scale final piece through 410 into high day, also previous area of resistance. And I also remember this one clearly, another one I was trading with my buddy on the live. And the level 2 got extremely heavy in this area. So I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to take my profit here. It was towards the end of the day. Call it a day here with a nice win to, cap off the day. And then you can see this candle ended up flushing all the way into 390. So I don't want to be in for this nasty action over here. I want to catch the setup, make the move, make the money on the move, and move on about my day. So another good trade here. You guys could see high volume stair step up, low volume pullback, high volume push. And then this candle was like, so I'm glad I exited where I did right through high day. I believe I had limits at like 412, 411. That's normally what I do. I set some limits, but limits got hit and then bam, this thing just went crazy. So I'm glad that I exited where I did. Last example we got here, guys, is BIAF, and this is going to be a 10-minute flag. I did not write the date over here, but it's pretty clear. So BIAF forms 10-minute flag while confirming 355 area as support. I should have said 322. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have started here. Number 1, number 2. Okay. High volume breakthrough 322 area resistance. Let's find that resistance point. You guys can see it right over here. 322 resistance. Get our high volume push through 322. Okay. Get an extension into 340s, 350s. BIF then pulls into this pivot on low or descending volume to confirm it as support, while forming this beautiful 10-minute flag. Kind of an extended flag, probably would have looked cleaner on a 15, maybe 20-minute, maybe even 30-minute, but I played it off the 10-minute. You guys could see we also have our EMA reaching over and confirming this area as support. We also have VWAP right below. So we have our pivot, we have our bidders, we have our EMA, and we have VWAP confirming this area as support. 4 different things telling us, hey, there's a high probability you'll probably bounce off this level, if you want to look at it like that. So we add right over here. For I believe this would probably be around 330, 328, risking off 322s. We then get a push into our previous high day area where we got rejected. 355 area resistance, so I know to scale some at or near this level. Very simple. We come into 355 area. What do? You scale some. Why? In case you get rejected. Notice the low volume pullback, high volume push, then big wicks indicating weakness plus weak level 2. I sell full on the next pop here. We end up selling off into the close. Biggest thing here, guys, level 2, okay? When you notice big walls on the level 2 and you also notice that bidders are not stepping up, there's a high probability that that is a sign of the tape shifting and that sellers are coming in and sellers are taking over. Sellers are pushing the bulls out of the way and bringing the bears in. Okay? Once again, when you see an extension like this and bidders are not being consistent, bidders are not still coming in, bidders are not stacking at 355 or 347 area, and you see these big walls on the ask side, it's probably a good time to take majority of your profit off the table or sell your whole position. Why? Because there is a high probability you will get rejected. Almost every time I exit a position, like you guys might see this as, wow, this guy's amazing. How's he catching the top? I don't think this is the top. I don't know this is the top. We can go back to a couple of examples over here where you guys can see, where was that one? Right over here. So you guys can see this thing, ended up extending higher, or not this one. Where is the one? This one. So at the time, I seen the resistance level, $2. I seen the wall stacking. I decided to sell full, but what happens? We end up ripping. So no, it's not that, oh, this guy's catching the top. No, none of that. I don't know it's going to extend. I'm just reacting to what's being presented in the moment, okay? In the moment, there's a big wall here at 2. In the moment, bidders are not stepping up. So I'm reacting in the best way that I see fit to protect myself. And in this case, it would be to take your whole position off of the table and move on to the next. Same thing over here. Bidders began to lose steam. And we end up, getting all the asks to come in. I see that and I react to it in the way I see fit. Those are all the examples I wanted to walk through with you guys. Like I said, these are all entries from my personal trading journal. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.